So I want to talk about emotive recruitment. Now, a lot of things I've heard this morning I fundamentally agree with. An interesting observation, I'm a marketer by background. So I'm formerly Ogilvy, WPP. I've moved into the resourcing side, but a lot of the skill set that we used in the marketing world is identical. Some of the tools change, it's pretty much 95% the same. And one of the biggest things that's different between recruitment as it was and recruitment as it's becoming is this idea of an emotive recruitment, emotive conversation, emotive engagement. It's not just about a functional conversation anymore. So I believe that we are about delivering solutions that are valuable, meaningful, and unique. So really what I want to talk about today is three things. I'm going to talk about what I think emotive recruitment means and how you go about doing it. I'm going to talk about an example where we've done it on quite a big scale, and then an example where it's been done on a campaign scale. So I'm the head of digital at TMP, but please don't think that that means head of technology. Head of digital is about communication. Digital is becoming the center of much of the communication and the channels that we use today. So really I consider myself a kind of creative strategist. Technology features in there. We use technology, but it is about the story. And it's about creating great stories. Now, I totally agree with one of the points that was made. The game hasn't changed, but the way we do it is changing. You can go back quite a lot of years to Oscar Wilde. The only thing worse than being talked about is not being talked about. Never more true than in modern recruitment. Many people are concerned about what people say about them, where people say it. I can't use Facebook, I can't use this, I can't use that, because I don't quite know how that conversation might pan out. Well, it's better to be in a conversation because at least you're in the game. If you're not there, then you just stand no chance. Now, a lot of the things that we look at and we see and we engage with every day very much center around emotion. If you consider when you first walked in, the guys played a video that showed you a whole bunch of stats with some great background music that kind of gets you going, gets you engaged, gets you ready for the day. A lot of what we try and do is to create content that gets our candidates engaged. And we use this term brand-led direct resourcing. It's about using the power of your brand to get people talking about you. So I use a video with a number of clients to kind of get this point across. It's not one of ours, it's a Microsoft video that they launched to show off the Xbox. I love it, and it really kind of just gets you going. I want to just show it to you.
Unexpected things. Helpful things. Beautiful things. Inspired things. Which is why, even though the world keeps asking us what we'll do with Connect next, we're just as excited to ask the world the same thing.
They probably had a very large budget to make this. They found some really nice music. They filmed a really nice piece. But it gets you going. It makes you stop and look. It makes you think. It's not just buy a Connect. It's £129. You can stand up and wave in front of it and it'll do things. It makes you feel like, I understand a bit more about this. I want to find out more. It starts a conversation almost inside yourself of, well, what is this? I want to explore, I want to find out more. We think that audience attraction and engagement has changed. The game hasn't changed, but the tools have changed. It's becoming smarter, considerably smarter, and we'll show you a bit more about that. It's becoming social. Now, everyone's talked about social. I'm sure there's going to be a lot more talk about social as we move on. It's also becoming portable. There's been conversation about mobile. A lot of what you're probably going to hear, to be honest, it's a good thing because we're all seeing the same trends. We're all pointing to the same future. But it's centered around emotive conversation. I strongly believe that that will be the core of successful recruitment going forward. People are going to share how you make them feel. Because fundamentally, only a few people are going to be interested in your job. If you take the massive jobs that you're going to offer, each individual job will appeal to a subset of people. But your brand, your story, the reason to work for you could appeal to everyone. So it's stepping away from just the job to more, who am I? Why would you want to work here? What are you going to get out of working here, no matter what the role is? And the strongest line that we are currently suggesting to our clients is what you say about yourself is far less important than what audiences say about you. The power of your brand lives in the voice of your audience. So how do we mobilize that? How do we use that to our advantage? A lot of these things are going to be empowered by digital. That's not because digital is necessarily through technology doing anything different. It's because almost all of the comms channels we use today are becoming centered around digital. TV, the internet, social media, all of these are being powered by digital and growing through digital. So it's becoming vital to our lives. If you think about the iPhone 5 video when it launched, Johnny Ive said, when you think about your iPhone, it's probably the object you use most in your life. Now that's a bold claim, and obviously that's Apple's claim, so there may be some marketing spin on there, but we are all becoming marketers. There have been a whole bunch of jokes about this. There have been people posting, I use it more than my shoes, I use it more than my pen, I use it more than my this, I use it more than my that. But you know, Apple felt confident to say it's the object you use most in your life. A few years ago, you didn't even have an iPhone, you never heard of the blooming thing. Today, it's the object you use most in your life. A recent survey says there have been a number of these. One was for pets. As someone who used to work on Nestle Purina, I found that really disturbing, and a cat lover. People would rather give up sex than their cell phone. Don't know. I won't do a show of hands for it, but it would be funny. No, let's not. It's becoming ubiquitous. So I don't know about a lot of you guys. Certainly as a Londoner, I tend to spend a lot of time on the tube these days because I get a more reliable Wi-Fi signal on the tube than I do in most coffee shops. So I go down into Holborn Station. I don't get interrupted by phone calls, but I do get to get my work done and check all my emails. It's a very sad state of affairs, but it's ubiquitous. It's inclusive. These are actually not the latest numbers, but it's the last one that Facebook released with this beautiful little diagram. I think they're now up to 956 million. The current talk is they'll hit 1 billion before the end of this year. They are a massive community, but it's not just the community, it's what the community is doing. 3.2 billion likes and comments a day. 125 billion friendships. Friendships equally are professional connections as well. 300 million photos uploaded. Why are people using it? Because it creates an emotive resonance between them and the people that they want to hear from. That's why Facebook works. It doesn't work because it's functional. It works because of the emotion. For us, emotive is really centered around social, mobile, and personal experiences. And more, these are the things that create successful campaigns, be they marketing campaigns or recruitment campaigns. And as we've said, more and more, the two are becoming very, very linked together. To me, personal is the most important because you personally decide how you want to be spoken to, where you want to be spoken to, if you want to be spoken to or not. So we are in a place now where we're looking at always-on recruitment. It's less about campaigns that have a 5-week duration. It's about how can we have a perpetual brand presence. Yes, we have roles that come and go, but as a brand, we're always here. We're always going to be recruiting. We're always wanting to get our recruitment message out there. Interestingly, I've seen a few of these words in the last presentation, and I'm sure probably we'll see them again. Everyone's going to structure them in a different way, but for me, it is about connections, having conversation around content. Content is king. Content will always be king. Because if you haven't got anything to say and there's nothing sort of bringing you together to have that conversation, then really it's just a bunch of people having a chat. We can target what they say and we can create context. Context is the most important thing, which is a combination of connections, having conversation around relevant content. How do you go about doing this, though? This is all very nice, but how? Because otherwise it's just we're all saying, okay, we need to get more emotive. Well, it starts with understanding. It is impossible for you to have an emotive conversation with anyone without really understanding them. In exactly the same way as we talked about the dating metaphor. When you first start your date, it may start with a joke. It may start with, you know, the one-liner that you wheel out. How does an octopus go into battle? Well armed. Never works as a line, but it doesn't really say anything about me. It's not particularly emotive. It creates a smile. It's an initial conversation. But I need to understand the audience that I'm speaking to. I need to try and help them understand me. I need to make myself attractive to them. I need to then engage with them. If that one line, that one little joke was the opening gambit, what's the engagement that's going to last the next hour? How am I going to have a sustained conversation where you find out about me? You find out what I can offer? How are we going to get you to take action? Taking action isn't just applying for a job. Taking action can also be, I want to register my interest in what you've shown me. I want to register my interest in your brand. I just want to share it. I've seen something that I think is great. I want to spread your word on your behalf through social media or even just down the pub. That's another thing we have to remember. Social media is not Facebook. Social media is not LinkedIn or Twitter. We've used social media for centuries. We use social media in caves, standing around wheels. We used social media way back in the day. We now just have a few different ways of doing it. More people tend to see what we say, but that's a good thing too in a way. And then how do we nurture those relationships? And nurturing it allows us better understanding to then allow us to do the job better. And for us, all of that is centered around this idea of an emotive message. So it is a different way of thinking. The game hasn't changed, but the way we approach it has. So I want to show you a couple of examples, because otherwise this is all just very nice pomp and grandeur. How do you actually make this stuff happen? So we've done some great work for one of our clients, Jaguar Land Rover, around emotive content and trying to create a conversation around people wanting to work at the brand. So it's not just about jobs, it's about the brand itself and people wanting to engage with the recruitment brand. So for Jaguar Land Rover, they wanted to build an emotive story. They wanted to tell the story in channels that audiences could embrace. They wanted to create much deeper relationships with their audience, increase the number, that's obviously a given, everyone wants more people, but also to increase the diversity. They were finding it very easy to hire petrol heads, but how do you encourage a top Bluetooth engineer to want to go and work at a car company? How do you diversify your audience? Creating content that audiences want to share. They really wanted to try and get into the conversation and innovate, because as a brand they're trying to demonstrate their innovation, how innovative their products are, to bring that to life through how innovative they go to market. So one of the things we did for them is we've actually just launched a brand new website which uses things like responsive design, adaptive layout. People talked about mobile before. Mobile testing is one thing. Get it working on a mobile, make sure it doesn't break, but make sure it works perfectly on a mobile device. But that's not just a smartphone, but that's also a tablet, a computer, a TV. There are many different devices now that can access the web, so make it work on every device. But have a nice center point, a jewel in that site, that when people first arrive, they can really, truly get a feel for what that brand is all about.
My favourite Jaguar Land Rover moment is having a flash of inspiration. And then seeing your design drive down the street. I just love working with cars on this level and getting to add my own touches to the latest model.
It's seeing the empty shells enter at one end and the finished cars being driven out at the other.
It's coming into work every day with a great team. And being the first to drive the cars.
My moment is showing off a product we are all really proud of. For me, it's bringing together all the elements that go into one of our cars. And then marketing them to the world.
For me, it does a few things, and it does a few things really well. We try to take the sort of the Apple mentality, pick a few things to hang your hat on and do them really well. Show people, but don't show people as just talking heads saying what I do every day in what looks like a meeting room that they've clearly never been in before in their lives, and they look utterly petrified, and it makes you petrified watching them. You get embarrassed on their behalf. It makes you uncomfortable. It is an emotive experience. It's an unpleasant emotive experience. What we try to do is put a little bit of production value into it, not masses. That doesn't cost what the Xbox ad cost, no doubt. It's, you know, in situ. You see real people doing real jobs and talking about what it's like to actually be there. Show a selection of people, touch on what they do, and bring it all together around the power of the brand. And ask a question at the end: what will your moment be? It's an invitation. It's inviting you to take part. It's inviting you to stand up and want to be a part of it. For the website, we almost don't talk about websites anymore, and it's a terminology thing, but because more and more sites are now moving to being mobile, we tend to now think mobile first. So we talk about branded destinations. Create a destination to bring your brand to life. Create this emotive hub. First thing you do when you arrive, what kind of person are you? What kind of role are you interested in? Is it an apprentice role, an undergraduate role, a graduate role? Try and let the people choose. Give you that information. For one, it gives you a lot of information and data that you can use. But for two, it allows you to then structure the site that they see around the choices they've made. So emotion is about feeling that someone listens to you and understands you and knows you. So by this site, you see we've got experienced professionals on the top left. If you choose a different type of audience, then the whole site will restructure according to that type of person. Because if you're coming in for a job as a graduate, you have very different expectation and very different content and knowledge and brand requirement than if you're coming in as a really experienced hire or as a volume worker. So we changed a lot of elements. There's a lot of technology that we've used, but the technology isn't what's interesting. It's what it allows us to do. Things like the ATS as well. Your ATS is a functional tool. It is very difficult to make an ATS emotive. It's very difficult to have a conversation in an ATS, simply because it's a job listing. The nicest thing you can do, and the thing you should do, is make your job descriptions very well written, try and bring the brand to life as much as you can. But what we try to do is actually bring data out of the ATS and display it in the site, so you can actually engage with it as part of the branded destination, as part of the conversation, rather than have a conversation with us, now bang off into the ATS and start looking at jobs, because otherwise they feel disjoint. So bring the jobs and the conversation together. Make it work on a tablet just as well as on a computer. So on a computer, look like that. On a tablet, it doesn't just squeeze and get smaller, it actually restructures itself. And on a smartphone, restructure even further. So scroll down through the content. Be emotive in how you use social. So one of the things I'm not going to do is list out the tools you should use and how you use them. You know, use Facebook, use Zing, use LinkedIn, use this, use that. Social media as a channel is a combination of locations that you can use to bring your message to life. So if you're in LinkedIn, if you're on Facebook, be a part of the conversation and bring your conversation to those channels in the best way. So in Facebook, interestingly, we use faces. We use the faces of employees within Facebook. LinkedIn was a much more professional message. Be emotive in the media you use. Media doesn't just have to be, we're looking for this person, here's the salary, here's the location. bring that brand message to life. And at events, one of the great things is if you create this content, you can then reuse it. One of the fantastic things about digital is the reuse potential. So reuse everything. We created an event stand for our graduate community, which reused a great deal of the content that we created for the website. Emotive does work. It would be remiss to show all this great pretty stuff without showing some content and data that goes with it. Emotive can really work at creating engagement, getting people to want to participate, getting people to come to the site, stay on the site, use the site, and engage and actually apply for roles. That is a big program of work. That is a year-long program. What I want to show you now is the exact opposite almost, a 5-week campaign. So a client came to us with a requirement for a campaign that had to be filled within 5 weeks because then their hiring centres were going to start. So it was sort of the opposite of what we were saying earlier about trying to be open-ended in your brand-led recruitment. We did start a brand-led conversation, but a campaign for a specific role had to be done in a 5-week window. The requirement was from one of our clients, GCHQ. We want you to go and find us cyber security specialists. Now, I don't know if anyone here has ever tried to hire, if you would be so kind. Hands up anyone who's ever tried to hire a cyber security specialist. Hands up if anyone knows what a cyber security specialist is. Because I assure you, cyber security specialists don't know that they're cyber security specialists. GCHQ had come up with its own name for this role. And their view was to try and put, some ads in papers and try and fill these roles. The people look kind of like this. Honestly, this is actually Kevin Smith. This is a screenshot from Die Hard 4 for the film fans amongst you. He's probably about 20 years, 25 years older than the typical person we were looking for. What the role is fundamentally to do is to try and protect the nation's infrastructure, digital infrastructure, from potential attack. So to understand where the threats could be and help to reinforce and rebuild and all of that great stuff. They kind of need to have similar skill sets to hackers. But obviously you couldn't have been a hacker because you can't work for GCHQ if you've been a hacker. So you have to be an ethical hacker. It just gets better. The salary was fairly poor. The location was Cheltenham. Cheltenham, I'm sure, is lovely as a place to live for family people and for lots of people. Probably less so for these guys. So the challenge we found ourselves with is GCHQ, who potentially might have been perceived as the enemy to some degree. This is the organisation who would try and stop people from doing hacking, are trying to hire people who are kind of like hackers but not hackers into a job that no one understands the name of for a salary no one would want in a location no one would want to work, using the Sunday Times. Challenge. So they came to, and a very small budget. I forgot that one. So this was our challenge and 5 weeks to do it in. So what we decided is to use the emotive engagement. How can we get these people to want to engage with this campaign and to want to engage with GCHQ? Well, the Trojan horse idea is the one that came to mind. Imagine if we could create a conversation that these people wanted to engage with. Imagine if we could create a challenge that they would feel spoke to them and resonated with them. So we went to GCHQ and said, we have an idea. Can you make us a code that would take one of your best people 2 or 3 days to crack? We got the code, which was a series of numbers, and we posted it on a website called canyoucrackit.co.uk. All we did in the site was we put a countdown timer at the bottom left, the code, and enter keyword. That was the site. That was the start, middle, and end of the branded destination. You notice it's an unbranded branded destination. If you actually figured out the code and entered in the keyword, you would go through to a page that, and I always paraphrase this, the exact copy was much better than anything I'm going to say. You think you're a genius. You think you're an utter legend because you've solved this code. Actually, this is the kind of stuff we do every day. If you want to stop fagging around in your bedroom on your own and possibly make a difference to your country, to your family, to your friends, and become one of the big boys, you might be good enough to come and work at GCHQ. You just might be. Go and look at this role, and if you think you're good enough, apply. That was the whole campaign. The one big piece that we did differently was we used a technique called influencer relationship management, which is basically using social media in its truest form. Create conversation and go out and seed that conversation into the blogosphere. Social media, don't forget, Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter, all these little tools, lovely. There are 180 million blogs in this world where people talk about things they love, things they hate, brands they like, places they'd like to work, hobbies, fetishes, whatever it is. So we went and found a whole bunch of blogs, sites, communities, including Facebook, including Twitter. So things like 4HackSec, CyberMecca, Protocol Solutions. And we posted in there the message, we've just found this thing. Can you crack it? Don't know where it came from. Don't know what it is. Don't know what happens when the countdown timer runs out. Don't know anything about it, but it looks really interesting. Does anyone know how to crack this thing? So we created extensive conversation, which we then went back into the community and helped to drive and seed. The result after 5 weeks was we were in 476 publications. We did a small PR push at the very end of the campaign in the last couple of days that said, actually, GCHQ has been out there looking for cybersecurity specialists. This has been the campaign. The result was profound. We were in almost every publication. We went global. We were in the Sydney Sunday Morning Herald. We were in The Sun, The Telegraph, BBC. We were interviewed on ITN News at 10. We were interviewed on BBC Drive Time Radio. The end output, our little site got 95 million hits in 5 weeks with no media, just social. Not a single banner went live for this campaign. No job postings, no nothing. We had 3.2 million unique visitors. We were the top 4 tweeted term. And let me clarify, that doesn't mean we were number 4. That means we were 1, 2, 3, and 4 in the UK for that campaign. GCHQ, cyber jobs, GCHQ jobs, and can you crack it were the top 4 tweeted terms. We had thousands of people applied. Over 170 were taken forward. Bear in mind, we thought we might get 2. 3 would have been great. Over 20 people work there today because of this. We made for them, talking about the difference between marketing and recruitment, over £1.7 million of PR value for that brand in 5 weeks. So even if we'd hired no one, they would have considered it a resounding success. This, for me, is the purest demonstration of an emotive recruitment campaign. And it's one that I strongly would endorse us all using as a template. What it isn't is it's not something you can just pick up and copy. It's not a tool. I've not got a white label pack that I'm going to whip out and say, so you can now buy it for X. But what it is a really great way of using all the things that people have talked about already and will continue to talk about, bringing digital and emotion to life. Right.
GCHQ.
That was our client talking about it. In the interest of time, the one thing I'd like to leave you with is what you say about yourself is less important than what audiences say about you. So the biggest thing to do is to get involved in that conversation, and good luck with it. Thank you, man.